Greetings, Mana 3301 onliners, and welcome to this week's video. We just finished covering chapters 3 and 4. Chapter 3, I love the the subject matter of that with the personality types, because I think it's really important to, in the understanding of management, to understand a little bit about the psychology and sociology of the management styles. When you sort of take into consideration what it takes to be a manager, you sort of have to understand different personality types, because unfortunately, all of the people that you manage are not going to be exactly like you or exactly like any one given personality type. You're going to have all kinds of folks working for you. So one of the questions, of course, was that was related to your paper that you wrote, and a big portion of chapter 3 was what the book refers to as the Big Five, the personality types. Now, a lot of you who have taken a Myers-Briggs type indicator will feel as though that the very, very similar personality types were discussed here in the Big Five. One of the things that I really wanted to also kind of talk about was the difference between extroversion and introversion. And it's not necessarily always just the life of the party versus the person who sits in the corner. But as Myers-Briggs points out, the difference between extroversion and introversion oftentimes is defined as to what is it that you do to just sort of recharge your batteries. How do you recreate yourself? The extrovert relaxes and just sort of unwinds by calling together some friends and going out to dinner or having a party or in something in a social environment. Whereas the introvert unwinds by, curling up with a good book or turning on their favorite movie or something of that nature. Now, they're just like any of the other personality types, there's nothing inherently right or wrong with either. There are strengths for both personality types. And in some cases, the personality type will be indicative of a little more opportunity for success given the work environment. Individual contributors, oftentimes, that work by themselves with very little supervision or need for interaction, sometimes the introversion personality type is suited better for success in that kind of work environment. However, there are other work environments that need lots of collaboration where an extroversion type personality type might be a little bit more geared towards success. But just like anything else, too much of one type sometimes can be detrimental to success for the team. So you need both types in your team. One type or another is not necessarily indicative of being a good manager either. I've known good managers who are both introverted and extroverted. So don't fall into the trap of making the personality types a right or wrong type question, or yes or no, or successful or not successful. Nothing can be further from the truth. Many folks of different types of personality types are successful in leadership as well as individual contributors. Now, the other thing I wanted to talk about was the chapter 4 talked about some ethics, and the question that was posed on your discussion board was, does your organization have a written code of ethics or values that are published? And many of you had talked about the DBU's policy and toward integrity and making sure that the environment is free from any kind of cheating or inappropriate advantage in the classroom, where others talked about the values that are established by your companies. Now, from the standpoint of a human resources professional, which is what I do when I'm not teaching, I use the company's shared values to help managers manage behavior. Policies and procedures of most businesses will indicate whether or not an employee is performing their job correctly, and it gives an objective standard by which you can assess performance. However, many managers have asked me, how do I manage attitude or behavior? And I had tell them it's our shared values. You have to have an objective measure if you're going to manage and hold someone accountable to a particular standard of behavior or performance. The shared values will give you that objective measure to manage behavior. Many times managers have asked me, how do I deal with a bad attitude? Well, first of all, you have to be able to define what a bad attitude is. If a bad attitude is defined as simply something I don't like as a manager, well, that's not an objective measure to govern by. That's simply my opinion. And it's very, very hard to make managerial decisions based on people's performance and behavior based solely on an opinion. There needs to be an objective measure established to give you the basis for determining what is the right behavior. And that's where codes of conduct and shared values will come into play in helping you manage from on a behavior standpoint. Most of what I deal with professionally as an employee relations manager is having to do with not necessarily the person's performance as much as it is the person's behavior in the workplace. As a manager, you need to understand the difference between what it takes to lead through both performance and behavior and how the two intertwine. Y'all did a great job on your papers. I enjoyed reading the discoveries that you had as you went through the various assessments in chapters 3 and 4. The type indicators, the mood indicators, the emotional intelligence, and then how you made decisions. Well done on your papers. I'm hoping that you discovered some things or confirmed some things about yourself and that you can take in as an assessment of yourself as you go into your managerial career. Well, I hope everything is going well. Next week, we're going to have our first exam. It'll be covering chapters 1 through 5, and I wish you well on that. I'll look forward to your input on the discussion board questions for this week, and we'll see you next week on the video. So have a blessed week, and we'll see you online.